Okay, first question. How can we in FMO support the FWO ministry and help them succeed? Number one thing is by doing your own part of working on your own healing, by becoming an example to others as well.
One thing we would recommend is to kind of alter the child care, because if you have kids that come that need child care, and on Tuesday nights we don't have child care, so if you can alter with your wife to come, maybe you stay home with the kids one day and then the wife, I know sometimes you come from other areas where both need to come, but another thing, part of this, and this is not so much for the ministry to succeed, but to really just be sensitive that your wives do need that time sometimes when you have little ones, to give her that time to just have an hour to herself, that she can kind of recharge, because sometimes we don't get that, and we're constantly, as moms, we want to do everything. We want to be super moms, and if our batteries diminish, our actions and our responses diminish, and we're cranky, we're mad, we're angry, and we can not become very nice ladies. And praying and encouraging your wives, your fiancés, girlfriends.
Yeah, I think the prayer is really important, to pray together with them, if possible. That was something that really helped Tony and I, is we were praying mornings and evenings, whenever possible. When I'm struggling with the thoughts and visuals that I have created in my mind, and I tell my wife of my struggle and how I don't want to fail, how do I react when she doesn't want to have sex with me? Well, I'd say try to understand her feelings, because women, as you probably have heard, how we're like crock pots. We need slow cooking. It takes us a while to get there to that point.
Yeah, just because you take a shower doesn't mean she's ready to go.
Yeah. And so especially during this time, it's very difficult because she's hurting and she's not feeling that love. And so a lot of times you just need to give her time and help her to feel that love from you again.
Really react with love and with no expectations. I think that's a big one, because sometimes we're having these expectations, and that's where we get ourselves in trouble, is when we have those expectations and we don't get what we're thinking we should get. So having no expectations whatsoever, I think it's also awesome that you are sharing your struggles, but that is something for your own healing. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's big, but as Rosa was saying, we need to feel the love, and we are feelers. Women feel a lot. We have emotions, and we go by what we see. So with that, just be mindful that we feel a lot. We have emotions, and sometimes they're off the chain.
I've heard men before threaten that they'll go act out, or they will, go seek sex somewhere else as almost like a threat to them. And I'm telling you, that's just going to prolong the healing process. So, and they think, some men think that by doing that, they're going to get what they want, the physical need, but they're not going to get it met. And like I said, it's just going to prolong it, and it's just going to, so if you're doing that, I pray that you would take that to God and stop doing it.
But I also encourage you to continue sharing your thoughts and your struggles with your wife or girlfriend, because that's going to help with the process of the healing too for both of you. But I can't remember if we mentioned it in the video, because we came in halfway through what you guys were watching. But I know Tony has mentioned it before, or we've talked about it before, how to me it's sexy coming into the bedroom and seeing Tony reading his Bible.
So I have books all over the place. I'm not even reading it, I just got it up. I was like, that was a very good story. You want to read this?
So knowing that you guys are working on your relationship with Christ, and that really helps too.
I'm going to start reading more books.
So it says, what is the women's responsibility in the recovery process? well, one thing, she is not going through a recovery process. Hers is more of a healing process. And her responsibility is to work on her own healing, but it shouldn't discourage you from working on your own healing.
And also, we are supposed to help and support your recovery. So we always emphasize that they need to also help and support your recovery. So, yeah.
Yeah, because I do remind the ladies how in Genesis, from the beginning, God's telling us that we were created to be your helpers. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I tell the ladies too, is to try to encourage you in your healing and help you in your healing as well, by not bringing up the past and by just trying to move forward. How can I have a blessed marriage if it ever happens? Well, if you're saying if, you're doubting that it will happen. And so I would just keep it positive and just, believe that it is going to happen.
Yeah. Because remember, what we say is big. So not if. I mean, even in my circumstance, even though it ended in divorce, doesn't mean that that's where it's going to stay. I know God can do bigger things than that. But I just feel that just believe it and trust that God is working, even when you don't see nothing happening. Just, you have to sometimes not go by what we're seeing, but just know that God is going to do big things in your marriage. And both people need to be in recovery. They need to be in some type of support group and have that same goal, because if one person is not, you can continue to pray for that person, and that's what we say, is just continue to pray and stay in it until you hear from God. And I will never, ever tell a woman it's time for you to leave, because it's not my place. It will never be my place. That's something that you have to take to the Lord, and the only one that can do that is God. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that goes for Rosa too. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When we were going through our recovery and the restoring of our marriage, we watched the movie Fireproof, and I bought the soundtrack that on that. And in one of the songs it says, "While I'm waiting, I will worship you." I've listened to that song about 200 times.
I love that song.
And I'll continue to listen to it, because what that did is, no matter, because I was doing all the right things. I was doing everything. And I was going to keep doing it, regardless of what when she forgave me or whatever. But while I was going through this process, I just kept telling, I am going to worship you while I'm waiting.
Yes.
And even after she did forgive me, I kept worshiping him. I kept working the issue. It wasn't, when she forgave me, it wasn't like, okay, now I'm good. I can continue back the way I was. It's moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Amen.
What happens on the first day of FWO? We give women an intake form, and we have them sign a confidentiality agreement, and we let them share their stories. But sometimes it takes a couple of meetings before some of the women will open up and start to talk about it, because sometimes it's their first time to ever talk to anybody else, or even in a group, and so it's very uncomfortable. So what else would you add to that?
I think one of the things that women want to feel is safe, that they want to feel safe, that they're going to be able to share and to be around like-minded women, that we're all in the trenches and at different degrees of healing. And it's amazing what happens, because some women will say, well, I'm not ready to share, but sometimes a woman will hear what that woman says and will receive it more from somebody else that has just started the class than from us that are. So we're all in it to just encourage and to give them that hope. So I would say making it a safe environment for them is really crucial.
How do you deal with women to help them confront unforgiveness in their lives and towards their husbands? to confront unforgiveness, that's really something that needs to be God and Spirit led. We have a pillar in our workbooks. It's a whole pillar that's dedicated to forgiveness, and so there's 4 lessons on that. And I also bring in some other material that will help them with the unforgiveness too, and bitterness. There's a booklet that I bring in, and from time to time we recommend different seminars, or just let them know what's going on here at the church or other churches even. Is there anything else you want to add?
The forgiveness part of it, what does God's word say? That He won't forgive you if you don't forgive others. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of the women have it, but not just with their husband, but a lot of us have it with others. And as you go through this process, as I'll explain a little bit later, but forgiveness was a major part of my recovery. And about the year 2, 3, and 4, it was a major part of my recovery. And you heard it on the video. And I had a lot of people that I thought had hurt me, and I had bitterness towards.
There's one thing that we call premature forgiveness. And sometimes we, the husbands will tell us, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it again. And we believe that. And we say, okay, well, I forgive you. And it happens again. And sometimes we start rekindling that because it becomes a habit. I know in my life it did, because it was 16 years of it. But with that forgiveness, it's not true forgiveness. It's just a temporary thing, because we keep on bringing it back up. True forgiveness is really what happened in my life. I just did that in 2012, 2013. There was a message here by, I don't know if you guys remember, it was by an Indianapolis Colts player, and he's a pastor. Well, he was talking about how forgiveness, if there's unforgiveness in your heart, it will stop the blessings from being brought down to your life. And to me, that was really huge. It just was a revelation that I said, you know what? I want to receive all God has for me. So I came to a point where I said, I have to forgive my husband totally this year. 2013, I'm coming in totally, forgiving him. So on New Year's Eve, I called him. I called him and I said, hey, I need to talk to you. And he's like, okay, what's up? And I said, I just need to ask for forgiveness for my part of what I played in this marriage and how I reacted, and I also played a part. And he's like, yeah, thanks, and I said, and I forgive you for what you've done or what your part was. I said, but, I just want to receive all that God has for me. And he was like, you know what, that's cool. He goes, thanks. And it was good. And and we hung up, and he said, thanks, and that was it. Well, the next day we were more around each other, because before that he would be around me and I was like, oh, I would cringe. It was like, oh, this man really bothers me. This is the man that hurt me. But when I saw him probably a week later and he actually sat next to me, I was so cool. It was awesome. So we encourage that, but the only one that can really bring that transformation of when that happens is the Lord and the Holy Spirit. We can encourage it, we can tell them this is what happens, but only He is going to bring them to that place.
Yeah, that's very true, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because the healing process or unforgiveness process for every woman is totally different. For one, they might be able to forgive in 1 month. For some, it'll take a year. For me, it took actually 4 months before I could tell Tony that I forgave him. And as you saw in the clip from the 700 Club, because I knew when I said that I forgive you, that I wasn't going to look back anymore, and I wasn't going to bring it up anymore. I was just going to try to move forward. And so I was waiting for that time when I was ready to do that. And so it took for me 4 months, and it took for me going to an unforgiveness class, going to counseling. And for some ladies that are doing that, sometimes it might be something else that they hear,
exactly.
Something on the radio, but it's just all these things together. But it's going to take it's different timing for different ladies.
For us, for me, for men, a lot of us have to go and ask people for forgiveness. And premature forgiveness, it doesn't work. I did it, and it wasn't true. It wasn't from the heart. And I did, and I read some books, Freedom Through Forgiveness. I fasted for 40 days. I prayed, and then God just revealed it on the last day of the fast. You need to go ask all these people for forgiveness. And I'm like, what? Really? And I was so broken at that particular point. I had lost 32 pounds, and there wasn't much left to give except my heart and true forgiveness.
A second part to this card was, how do you address the women in your group who feel justified in their anger and unforgiveness toward their husbands? Kind of like what we've been saying, is it's a process. Yeah, so it's going to take different time intervals for different women.
Yeah. And it's not a matter of them feeling justified. I think, we have been hurt. And until they go through this journey of healing, that's where the transformation is going to take place. So it is a process. I mean, I remember going in and I was pretty broken. I think we go in pretty broken, and God does we're going into the fire basically, and really trusting that we're not going to singe or smell like fire, and just believing that through this, I always encourage women to not look at what's around them, to just know that God has brought them to this class for them. It's their time. It's their time for their healing. It's their time. It's not the marriage. It's not your husband's. It's their time. So that's one thing that I always tell them. This is your time. God has brought you here for a reason, and it's time for healing.
Yeah, we try to help them to get the focus off of you guys, and to focus now on themselves and on their healing process. And I know it's really hard for some women, especially in the beginning when they're in that detective mode, but that codependent mode. But that's something that we try to get them away from.
But their forgiveness is can be affected by what's happened in the past. They might be going, no, you've hurt me too many times. I don't know, because if they're a godly woman, they know once they forgive you, they can never bring it up.
Right.
They have to move on. But they may have been hurt so many times. They're like, no, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Yeah, you're going to FMO, but I don't see you reading your Bible. Yeah, you're going, but I don't. You know what? I still see you looking around. So they may be putting up some protection for themselves.
Yeah.
What is the line between boundaries and control? Well, boundaries are set for healthy reasons, and control is usually like manipulation, or wanting to have control. And we suggest that maybe you read a book that we also recommend to the ladies. It's called Boundaries, and I'm sorry I forgot the name of the author, but that's the name of the book. Helps you.
Townsend or something? Yeah.
Townsend? Okay. What is the most beneficial action a husband can take that has helped you? And I think we answered this one before too. To continue with his own recovery and to be in the Word.
You read your Bible by your bed.
Please give an example of a difficult boundary that was set that the husband finally agreed with. Moving out if the boundary is broken. And like we said in our testimony, when Tony moved out of the house, that's what made the huge difference for us, because that gave us both time away and time for Tony to refocus. And do you want to say anything about that?
Even though I wasn't living at the house, we still spent a lot of time together. We were always praying. I was seeing her throughout, because I worked 4 miles from the house, so we would come together and have lunch. We were spending a tremendous amount of time together, but I knew at the end of the day, I never asked her, well, can I stay the night? We knew the path that we had to go on for this, and it wasn't that easy.
And he'll tell you too that had he not been away that long, that he probably would have came back home and we would have been in the same situation where he would have gone back to his old ways. So that time away really did help us. And a lot of times it is even recommended by the Roberts also to have that time of separation, and other professionals too. If you're an FWO, does that mean you are willing to forgive your husband at some point? I always certainly hope that is the goal, because it's also for their own healing and for their own health, that they need to also do the forgiving.
And another big one is that we need to forgive ourselves, because sometimes we're forgiving other people, and the hardest person to forgive is sometimes ourselves. So that's another big one that stops. I think we're sometimes harder on ourselves than the Lord is. The Lord affords more grace, but we're tougher on ourselves. So,
if my wife has decided that she doesn't want to attend FWO, what would be the top advices to us men, or what would the top advices be to us men to lead to a healthier / restored relationship? I'd say show her that you're changing, not by your words but by your actions. Just love on her and become the spiritual leader of your home.
I would say pray for her heart to be willing to attend. So constantly pray that God will soften her heart to be able to attend, because for her own healing, and as much as some women think, oh no, I'm good, they're not. You know, it has affected them. It affects everybody. And ask her how you can pray for her. Mm-hmm. Very crucial, very big.
Mm-hmm.
Authentic change. It's got to be authentic. She'll see right through it. The other thing I would recommend is, often when we do marriage retreats or stuff like that, it's usually the woman that signs us up, right? Say, you know what? There's a marriage. There's actually one coming up very quickly. Communication conference. Ask her, say, is it okay if I sign us up to go do that? You take the initiative. Mm-hmm. You take the initiative to go seek counseling for yourself first, and then invite her. Show her that you're taking the initiative to restore this marriage, not waiting for her to do it.
But that also is not just for married couples. I mean, communication, in any relationship. So if you're single, dating somebody, we would recommend that too. You know
what? I know there's a lot of there are some single guys in here, right? Right? Mm-hmm. Okay. We're talking a lot about one raised his hand. The other one's I ain't got to. We're talking a lot about the marriages here, but I hope you get a lot out of this. So when you go into a marriage and you go into a relationship, you know a lot more about how to treat your wife, what to expect from your wife, and have that good communication that you need. And by the way, the communication conference is for single people also.
Well, speaking of singles, one question that was asked from the Wednesday group last week was, for a single guy, at what point would you disclose to your girlfriend about your past?
But I would say, once you guys start to
get serious.
Start to get serious, and I don't mean by having sex. That's not what I mean by serious, because a lot of our guys are going to think that way. Well, as soon as we start having. But as you start to become best friends and good friends, and you start to do things together besides being intimate, you need to let her know. You need to let her know and say, this was my past. But it's so much better to go through that healing process and say, I was addicted to porn.
Amen.
I was this man. Now God has transformed me. I've been going to that group for over a year, and you know what? I haven't looked at porn. I haven't done this. I haven't done that. And be really open and transparent with her. Your relationship is going to go a lot further than her finding out later, especially if you take it into your marriage. Because a lot of you will take it into your marriage.
Yeah, and I think she'll also respect you for letting her know about that, because then she'll see that you are working on this because it's something that you don't want to take into your relationship. And so that's why you're taking these classes or going to the groups. So, okay, next question. The way we are accountable for each other for acting out, I think women need to be accountable to other women for something like triggering their husband. I'm not sure what was meant by triggering their husband, if she's just nagging them or throwing something in their face. But we don't have accountability partners like the men do. But we have support in our groups. We text each other, we call each other, we pray for each other. So it's a little bit different.
So talking about texting, sometimes we'll be at home, and I'll hear that because her phone goes off every time there's a text, and I'll hear bing, 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 bing. I go, you need to talk to your ladies. But no, that's seriously, that's how they do it. You know what they do? They text each other and say, I'm going through this, please pray for me. Mm-hmm. And they uplift each other. They lift each other up through that process. And so the ding, 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 I know something's going on, and she'll usually either answer it or get involved on a call. But these ladies are helping each other through this process.
And our accountability is how we react and how we respond to a trigger. Okay, so we were talking about this, me and Rosa, earlier, and we were saying that you guys might not even have anything to do with the trigger, but it was somebody else said something that brought that up. And we will either do a silent treatment, have attitude, or, whatever. And you guys are like, what? What happened there, So I think our reaction and our response is our bad, where we have to learn how to do that better and take it to the Lord. And I always tell the ladies, take it to the throne before you take it to the phone, because it's better to go there than to go there. Okay, so that's what I tell them. So
I'll write that one down.
So take it to him first, because what we do as women, and I've done this, is I'll call one girl and she'll say, no, I don't think so, do this, do that. And I'm like, I didn't like her response. Let me call up the next girl. The next thing you know, you have all these people telling you different things, and you're kind of like, well, what do I do? Well, if we would have gone to him first, we would have known exactly what to do. So.
And we also let the ladies know to be careful who they share with. Mm-hmm. They don't want to call a girlfriend or some family member who's going to trash you guys. We want to have her call somebody who's going to lift up the situation in prayer and try to give her godly guidance.
Right.
How can I constantly reassure my wife that I love her and I want our marriage to work? Just keep doing it. Just keep reassuring her. Keep loving her.
Do what Nike does. Just do it.
How can I build trust with my wife again? Again, by being transparent, even with the little things, I think we kind of touched on this too, is when you have something that you have to tell her, don't wait for the right time, because that right time might not be for a couple days, or it might not even come.
Finds out?
Yeah, it'll be a lot worse if she finds out before you told her. So yeah, just let her know right away, just like what Tony was sharing that he was doing. We did have one couple who he didn't tell her right away about getting a text, or another one was even a phone call. And when she did find out about it, it was like, why didn't you tell me? It's like, oh, I was waiting for the right time. But again, when she found out on her own, that trust, it just went down the drain,
Shoots and ladders.
Yeah.
Shoots and ladders. Do you remember the game, Shoots and Ladders, where you go up the ladders and then you step on the cat's tail and then it gets you back down? Well, that's what happens to us. As we progress in our healing and we see, you guys doing your thing and, great, everything's great, one little thing can set us back and bring us down the chute, and we're down at the bottom again and we're starting over again. So, and with women, things travel very fast. I mean, we can get news across really quick. So once again, share with your that's why Mary Magdalene was the one that found the tomb empty, because she was the one that was going to spread that news really quick. You notice he had 12 disciples that were men, and who found them? It was a woman.
They would have stood there and contemplated, how did he do that?
So, we can get things out there quickly, so make sure you're the one that shares it and discloses or whatever it is that you need to do that.
If my wife does not go to FWO, how can I get her to start? Well, you can't get her to start, but one of the things that I do suggest is that you share with her what you're learning in your group, or like tonight, you can share that we were here tonight and that we brought flyers, which we do have some flyers in the back for the East County group and for Point Loma. And so you can say, hey, look at these girls were here tonight, and shared about their class and their group, and you can do it that way. Let's see. Yeah, or you can also give them our telephone numbers if you don't think she'll want the flyer. If you see her struggling maybe one time, and you just give her our numbers and tell her to give us a call if she needs to talk to somebody, and release some of that.
Yeah. A lot of times when a guy comes early into the FMO, I will ask him to watch our testimony first by himself, and then he hears what the pain that Rosa went through, and then the compassion that he has is like, oh man, he starts to get a wake-up call. And then I said, then after that, I want you to watch it with your wife. And then the wife has a better understanding of what he's going through, but also she sees what a couple that's working together, how much more, how much faster the healing is going to be in some cases. Yes. And she'll understand more of why does she need to get help. A lot of women are saying, you go get fixed and then come home when you're done, or whatever the case may be. But when she sees that what Rosa went through and when the healing that she had to go through, it helps. A lot of times we'll make ourselves available to talk to the couple for the first time. We'll sit down with them, and we've sat across from another couple that had just found out about it, and she's teary-eyed. She's like, how did he do this? Why this? And all the other. And he's very numb. He's just sitting there just going, basically in his mind, I got caught. How do I fix this? And she's throwing all this emotion, and he doesn't have it. And because of the process I've been through, I have a lot of compassion for what she's doing. And I'll look at the guy and say, you need to come to our group. You need to work your program. And I'll be very upfront and honest with him. So there's different things that you can do. The biggest thing, I believe, is just continue your path.
Yes. Yes.
And that's the answer to the next question too, is how does FWO help bridge the distance between the husband and the wife? It's working on your individual healing. Yeah. And just, when the both of you are working on it, there's a better chance of reconciliation. Mm-hmm. Does FWO focus on married women only?
No.
Absolutely not. We have single women in our groups too, and it's for a lot of the same reasons that you single men are in here too. It's to help you to get your healing and to help you in your next relationship, so that you don't take that same baggage into your next relationship. Mm-hmm. How does FWO reach out to women in need? Sharing the ministry with other ladies. We share with the ROC staff. A lot of the staff knows about our groups. We share with counselors, and just word of mouth. Yeah.
And just God brings them, because I do security here at Point Loma at 12 o'clock, and sometimes I'm standing in the lobby and I just watch people, and I'm always watching people, and I just know that amongst those people in church at the different services, there's lots of women and men that are broken in their marriages, that are just existing, and so I believe that the flock is ready. They just need to, God will bring them, and when they come, like I said, we're available for them.
And I'm also surprised at how many women find us on the internet. They just Google a group or whatever word they use, I don't even know, but they say they found us on the internet. So a lot of women don't even come to the ROC, and some of them aren't even Christians, or some don't even believe. But just last week we had one lady come to our group and she was saved. So praise God.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Is there any other questions that you guys want to ask while they're here?
Because that's it for the Tuesday group questions.
That's the prepared questions. Is there any questions that you guys have?
that was just counseling, prayer, because there's a lot of hurt, and it takes a long time. I mean, even for us, you know how well Tony worked the project. He didn't have any relapsing, but you know, it was still well over a year, and I was still hurting. But we were also well into recovery of our marriage. But yeah, it's just a bunch of everything together. The different counseling sessions, the different seminars we were going to.
Even though she had forgiven me, there were still, she still had difficulty hearing wedding vows. She still had, triggers and stuff like that. And what I tried to do with her is just reassure her, love her, and keep moving forward.
Yeah, that was huge in my recovery, was seeing him to go through his transformation.
And in mine, because my husband wasn't going through his recovery or his healing, I had to grasp onto the Lord. Amen. And so Jesus was betrayed. So I had to hold on to God and to his son and how he was betrayed in his journey too. So that's where I held on to. And if he went through the betrayalment and, look what he went through, what he endured. And I know because he lives in me, I can go through anything that he puts me through.
Mm-hmm.
I encouraged my wife to come back to FWO. She went a few years ago, had a bad experience, and didn't want to come back.
A few years ago, we had different leaders. So
you were the leader.
Well, that's a good point.
No, I'm just kidding.
No. But seriously, that's a good point. And we also tell the ladies, the new ladies that we get the phone calls, we say, go to try different groups, because we're very different personalities. We both love the Lord. We want women to get their healing. But you go to the different groups and see what's a better fit for you. Mm-hmm. It might be the East County group. But we just encourage them.
No, I was just kidding. People leave because I'm short, so that's okay.
And sometimes it might just be that they're just not ready at
Correct.
the time to attend a group, because they might come looking for any reason. I didn't like the way what she said, or I didn't like this or that, and it might be just an excuse.
We do that.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that I always let the ladies know that when they start coming is the enemy is going to put a lot on you the days that you attend, because he doesn't want you to get your healing. Okay, so I tell them to be mindful that on Tuesdays I get hit a lot. I get stuff thrown at me. It's like, where is this coming from? And I'm like, oh, study tonight, And those are the times you have to press and just say, you know what? I don't care what's coming towards me. I'm still going. And it's like going to work out. It's those days when you don't want to go work out, and you go work out and it's the best workout you have. Well, that's the same thing with pressing through our healing. Because the enemy doesn't want that marriage to be in accord, or your walk in healing. So just be mindful. I always encourage them and tell them, it's not that I want to declare something bad, but just be mindful of it.
Yes, they definitely fade away. We were just talking about this last night, that because I used to, every service, before going into every service, we would have to pray, because Tony knew that I was going to be triggered by the worship songs. I was going to be triggered by maybe something that one of the announcements, or Pastor Miles mentioning even the word pornography or affair. So I was triggered a lot at church, and so there came a time where we kind of stopped praying, and we were coming, and all of a sudden I was like, hey, I'm not getting those triggers anymore. I can worship without crying, because I was crying for a different reason, for wrong reasons. And there is definitely a point where it becomes less and less. I still do have triggers. It has been 5 years for us. I have triggers, but they're not triggers that that control me, or that I can just, I'm getting it, and I'll just, just like you guys have to do too, take control of your mind and think about something else and move on and not dwell on that thought. And so,
Right.
but definitely those triggers become lesser and fade away.
Yeah, and with me, my biggest trigger was a laptop, because my ex-husband was always on his laptop, always. So a laptop was like, oh my gosh, And so I have a 16-year-old. I mean, we have a 16-year-old, so he's always on his laptop. So I can't put on him what my trigger is. So I have to take my thoughts captive, as Rosa was saying, and not put that on him. Now, he knows, and he had an issue with some pornography on his, but we talked that through. But yeah, that was a big trigger. But now I don't want to, and God knows that I don't want to live my life with these triggers. I want to have a clear mind set on Him instead of living a life of constantly, oh, that reminds me of that, or that reminds me of that. That's not a way of being clear-minded with Lord.
No, I think it really did help, because for both of us to be involved in ministry at the same time, because we were at that same level and going at the same speed, and so for us, I think it really did help me in the recovery, because also maybe as Tony might have shared how it was helping us to be accountable. Like for Tony, he needed to not relapse or trying not to, because he was a leader, and so he was trying to live up to that of not relapsing. And for me as a leader too, I had to do things to be an example to the ladies. Mm-hmm. And so I think it did help.
If God touches you before that happens, there's for a lot of us, we do have to hit rock bottom. If you haven't hit rock bottom and you're here, praise God, because He's already talked to you and said, you know what, you need to get this before you get worse. Yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of us are stubborn and we wait. So it's when God touches your heart and you have a heart transplant. Yes. That yes. When that happens.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a blessing to start working on your purity without having to hit that rock bottom.
Yeah. I believe that God will get your attention or get our attention some way or the other. So it's better to accept the offer that there is healing and there is these classes to help you than to hit that where He's going to have to, have that Damascus encounter where He just kind of brings you out of. So as for my situation, my husband, I don't think he even really understand that he's lost his family. We're still around him, but to the effect, that's where sin has just blinded him so much that he's not even aware, of where this has led us. And that's what saddens me, is that sin and the enemy is out to destroy, and he's a liar, and he doesn't want marriages, because that's, when two people are in accord, that's powerful. So
I think full disclosure, the preparing for that is counseling. I don't think that we can prepare them for that, because everybody's disclosure is going to be different. But we do tell them to be mindful that there can be setbacks, or that full disclosure can happen where they say, oh, I've already told you everything. Well, sometimes that's not the case, and it takes them a while for God to be speaking to them and telling them, you've got to tell her more, and you've got to tell her this or that. So we just let them, we tell them also to be prayerful, because that way when they do, especially if they do know that there's going to be another full disclosure or something else disclosed, to be in prayer about it, because that way the Lord will prepare their mind and heart to receive what's going to be said.
Yeah.
And also when that full disclosure comes, or for disclosure for the first time, be prepared to be able to help her as to for counseling or for a group, to give her some kind of guidance and where she can go for help as well.
In the counseling, or in some of the books and some of the material we read, usually the man starts to go to counseling first, and then she'll go and she'll know that she'll have some idea this is, and then they both all meet together and do the full disclosure. I haven't seen that happen a lot. Usually what happens is the woman wants to know right away, and the guy will start feeding her stuff, but doesn't feed her everything. And then it keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. So there was one particular couple that we were coaching, and they were preparing for it, and then she just said, finally, she goes, no, I want to know now. Tell me everything so we can just move on and go through our healing process. So every situation is going to be different, and you're going to help her through that process through counseling or through the group. So.
Yeah, because you don't want the disclosure to happen the way Tony and I had ours, because I attacked him. And so
when I said after she beat me up, she literally beat me up.
So yeah, it was not pretty.
But that was the, I would call it the discovery of the affair. And then a couple of months later, or actually about a month later, God was just saying, you have to tell her all this other stuff. And I was like, no, I don't. Why? And he would not let it go. He would not let me let it go. And he just kept working on. And we watched the movie Fireproof. And the next day, she said she had to tell me some things that happened during our divorce or prior to our divorce. And then I had made a list. And I said, well, wait a minute. Let me go to my car. I got to get my list. And she's like freaking out going, oh my gosh, but what it was, there was some inappropriate behavior that I had, but also I told her about, I had dinner with women that worked for our company innocently, but I told her because I didn't want us to go to a company function and the woman said, hey, Tony, remember that time we had dinner together? And then she's going, you didn't tell me that. So it was a list of some pretty bad stuff, but also some other stuff, because that was my point of being really transparent. I was, I don't need to do it anymore. Yes, sir.
That's what I meant also with one of the other questions that was answered earlier was, even the little things. Tell her about the little things, because that way there's no surprises whatsoever. And I actually took that question to the Roberts. I emailed Diane Roberts and asked her that question, because I had heard it, but I didn't know where I had heard it, that it should be between, 30 and 90 days, kind of depending on the couple. But that is what's recommended. And so, yeah, that was straight from the Roberts.
And myself, what I did is, after we were going through this process and I was leading the FMO ministry, I prayed about it and I talked to her and got her permission that I did a 40-day fast. We were sleeping in the same bed, but I did a 40-day fast from intimacy with her. And it was, so you guys can't tell me it's not possible, because it is possible.
I can't say that, because every couple's different. And there was one couple that she, wanted to have sex, and she didn't want to, this really didn't affect that part of their life. And so for them, it wasn't necessary. So I can't say that that's the way it is for all couples. It really depends on the couple themselves.
Yeah. And if the woman is feeling that she needs that to abstain, then as their husbands, you should respect that and, communicate. What is it that you need? Do you need me to hug you? Do you need me to cuddle? What do you need? And if they say nothing, I just need nothing, then respect that. And don't look at that as rejection. It's just what she is needing at that time.
Yeah, especially right at the beginning. I remember when the disclosure happened for us, and for a lot of ladies that come to our group, I hear that they don't want the men to even touch her. They don't even want to hold hands. It's, and so for me too, it was hard because Tony, he was being very affectionate. And that's not like him to be that affectionate, but I think he was just...
A little bit.
So he was overdoing it. And so for me, it wasn't real. He was just doing it because he was trying to make up, and so I didn't see it as being real. Although I really loved the attention and affection, but it just was the timing was not right, and so I had to ask him to back off. And so again, but that's going to be different for everybody.
I'll take it from the man's point of view. I was always against counseling. I would find excuses not to do. I seek the counseling, and you know what? It was costly, but I would spend that money any day for what I found out about myself and the reason. Me personally, I would recommend that you start counseling right away, especially for an addict. Get counseling, because we need to find out the root, what's causing this. And I would say the majority of the times you got to go through counseling, and there's going to have to be sacrifices financially.
One thing would happen with me is that I was the one that was always initiating the counseling. I was like, we need to go to counseling, we need to go to counseling. So I would set up the time where, whatever. And this last time, right before I asked him to leave, he said to me, we need to go to counseling. And I said, you know what, you're right, okay. I said, you set it up, you pay for it, you do everything you need to do. And so 2 weeks later, I went up to him and I said, so what's going on with the counseling? He goes, well, it's really expensive. And I said, so what does that mean? He goes, well, I don't know if I can afford it. And I'm like, okay. So it was a very big indicator to me that he was not going to, it was just talk. Him saying, we want to go to counseling, but it wasn't until I let go of it and said, okay, let's do it, but you're going to do it. And when that happened, he didn't do it. So
counseling's for a season. It's for 4 months, 6 months, a year. It's not forever, and it gets to a point where you can't afford not to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, counseling is less expensive than a divorce or separation.
Exactly.
When you're separated, you're having to pay for 2 rents. Most likely, in most cases.
You're right.
So it's a lot cheaper when you look at it that way to do the counseling, and it's going to have a quicker healing, I think, than just being separated.
Mm-hmm.
The counseling that we use, Beinecke Counseling, they also have interns that are less expensive, that are just as good. They're getting the same training, so that's also an option.
And asking for payment plans or a scale, I don't know, some of them.
A sliding scale.
Sliding scale, yeah. Yeah, well, our workbooks are really, really good at bringing up past from our personal past.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good with that. I mean, people the women are surprised. It's like, hey, I thought this was going to be about my husband or learning about him. Well, workbook 1 does teach them about the addiction and what the man is going through. But a big part of our workbooks are about working on ourselves and our past and the hurts that we have from our past. I learned too how my insecurities and my low self-esteem, it wasn't just because of the affair and the porn. It was also because of issues from my childhood. Yeah. And so it helped me to see that.
One thing I talked about last Wednesday was when you came into this marriage, you brought a bunch of garbage and she brought a bunch of garbage. And unfortunately, we don't really deal with those before we get married. We end up dealing with them while we're married. And so, but it can be a very healthy experience because you're getting to learn a lot about her. She's getting to learn a lot about you. And your relationship becomes a lot stronger. And you understand her better and you have more compassion for her.
Yeah. Yeah, book 2 is a really, really, really good book because we find out our family origin of where we came from and how we were raised. It has a lot to do with how we react and how we expect, or like Rosa was saying, our self-esteem, our expectations, all of those things play a big part. So it's a really good book. I mean, a lot of ladies get a lot out of the second workbook.
Yeah, it helps you to see just how dysfunctional your family was.
How jacked up we are, too, really. I mean, and I tell the ladies, we're jacked up. We really are. Plus, we're emotional and, all of that. So we have a lot of
Yeah, we have 3
Thanks.
workbooks that we deal with, and they're all pretty nice, thick workbooks. So it takes us a good year to go through all of it. And so no matter, I mean, it's our groups are open groups. You can come in at any point, and we believe that if they come in at workbook 3, for example, then that's where God has them, at that point. And sometimes women are glad they came in at workbook 2 or 3 and not 1, because they're not ready to deal with the information about the addiction at the time.
Yeah.
They're still too angry. And so, God just brings them when.
And so sometimes they come in workbook 1 and they're ready to understand and get clarity, but they're not ready for forgiveness. And they'll say, I mean, I've had a few women say, I'm not coming back to workbook 3, okay, I'm not there yet. And I said, but by the time you go through this process, you will be. I go, that's what we're hoping that. And they get there and they're fine. So, they're all at different parts of their walks. And so I always say, you guys are here because it's God appointed, and you're here, I mean, whether you're ready or not, you're here, and encourage them.
Mm-hmm.
Life does go on, but this became the priority. We talk about, we've never had really issues on finance because we don't have any money. And we're like-minded, but that is an issue, because that creates a lot. Sometimes in a marriage, that's the number one issue, or can be one of the top issues. But we made this a priority, and I talked about boundaries. Our son was older. If you have small children, you still need to work on that. But some of the other stuff, some of the other relationships, you're gonna have to put up some boundaries, but make it a priority. You got to go to work. I mean, she was at work crying all day, and I was at work crying all day. And it was very difficult. It was really difficult. But as you start to work this process, some of those things start to disappear, but you're still working on rebuilding your relationship. It has got to be a priority. First, God. You've heard me say that over and over again. You've heard these ladies. That's got to be your first priority, and then working with your wife.
I think the forgiveness is for us. It's not for that other person, it's for us. Because as we know that if there is unforgiveness, it's like us taking poison and expecting the other person to die. So the forgiveness is not controlled or manipulated by thinking, oh, because we forgave, then that means they're coming back to us. No, it just means that you have released them to the Lord, and you're going on with your journey.
Yeah, each of you are in your groups to get healing for yourself, and not the other, not the other person. You're in it for yourself,
right?
Because if you're in this group because you want to get your wife back, then you're in it for the wrong reasons, and just the same thing for the women. Yeah. But speaking of forgiveness, also one thing I wanted to mention, how, and the workbook talks about it too, how we don't want to give premature forgiveness,
right?
Because, we all know how it's in the Word that we have to forgive, and yes, we do, but it doesn't say, right, and if you find somewhere in the Bible where it does say it, let me know, because I haven't found it where it says that we have to forgive immediately. Yes, it does say over and over we need to forgive, but the forgiveness is also a process, because if you forgive too prematurely, then you still have that anger in you. You still, that anger will turn into bitterness. And so you want to make sure that when you forgive, again, that you're going to forgive and forget it,
right,
and move forward. Like, I mean, it's not forgetting it like it's never going to be in your mind again. Yes, it's there, but you're forgetting it, and that you're not going to bring it up anymore. You're going to move forward.
Yeah. One of the words that there was 2 words that I really didn't like a lot was I'm sorry. The I'm sorry got kind of old after a while, because it was a constant, I'm sorry, or my bad. And there was no change with that sorry. It was still the same. So I didn't believe the sorry after a while. Or the other one was, but I love you. And I would look at him, but your actions don't show me that you love me. And love is not a noun, it's a verb. So I was always saying, well, and he would say to me, I love you. And I was like, no, I don't. I can't see it. I don't see the action that you are fighting for us, So those were 2 words 2 phrases that I really had a hard time with. But even once I forgave him, I'm okay with being around him. I've released him, and God has released me. So we're good. But those two words were really hard for me to grasp at times. Yeah, I believe a lot of women can't even articulate their hurt. I mean, it can go in a lot of different dynamics. I mean, we also have other issues as women where we can say PMS comes in, and not to use that as an excuse, but I think some women can't really articulate the hurt, and they react with yelling, you know, rage, anger, all of those things, because we can't, all we have is voice. We don't even have the words sometimes. But as God starts doing the work in their heart, that's where we want them to react and respond with love, to see you guys with God's eyes and to love you with His heart. But that doesn't happen right away. So that's my response.
Maybe intellectually it will, but not from the heart.
Yeah.
I think you can be book smart, but until you do a heart transplant with this, I don't think it's as effective. Oh, I know it's not as effective.
No. It would be more information and not a transformation. So you really want the transformation to take place by being in the Word, having the accountability, being around like-minded men to uplift you, because we can't do this life alone. We really can't. We need each other to help each other in this journey of life.
Just having like a routine, doing it daily. You know, when it's harder for us to do our Bible reading on the weekend because we're off our routine. In the mornings we get up at 5:30 in the morning, and we get up and go into another room and do our prayer time together, and then we do it separately. But it's the routine,
consistency,
and then
the routine and consistency.
Reminding each other. Sometimes I'm the one reminding him. Okay, on the weekend especially. Okay, we haven't done our reading. Let's go up before we do anything else. Let's go do our reading. Whatever time you decide is going to work for you guys.
But it was also, like I mentioned when I was in Hong Kong, where I had to make a decision. Was I going to continue with my way and continue with or was I going to finally, in Corinthians 13, later in the verse, it says, when I was a child, I acted like a child. I thought like a child. But when I became a man, I put my childish ways away. I was 48 years old when I put my childish ways away. And a lot of us need to grow up. And I know, I'm sorry, but a lot of us need to grow up because we're still acting like we were when we were 13, 14, and 15 years old when we started this problem. So until you become a man, until you start to say, I am taking responsibility for myself, my family, and as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord.
Amen. Yeah.
So, guys, we just got a couple of quick minutes here. Yet last night, Rosa and I are preparing to do a little bit of a discussion on the 5-year process, and it was amazing. We were going back, and it wasn't about the forgetting. It was about going back and re-looking at where we were at and how God has transformed us over this 5.5 years. And I'm telling you, all you guys are going to go through that process. And when you're done, you're going to be able to, maybe not up here in front of everybody, but you're going to be able to share this with somebody. The transformation that God is going to make in your life, you're going to look at it and go, oh my goodness, why didn't I do this 20 years ago, 10 years ago? Like I said, I didn't become a man until I was 48 years old. So, ladies, thank you very much.